नमस्कार। स्पिरिचुअल डॉक्टर्स फॉर होलिस्टिक हेल्थ में आप सभी मित्रों का स्वागत है। आज हमारे साथ फिर से हैं डॉक्टर दीपक रानडे सर। स्पीकिंग ट्री में जिनका आर्टिकल हम पढ़ते रहते हैं, पुणे में प्रैक्टिसिंग न्यूरोसर्जन एंड स्पाइन सर्जन। कॉन्शियसनेस पर कई सारे सेशन कर चुके हैं। ही इज ए वेल नोन स्पीकर ऑन दिस सब्जेक्ट मैटर। और आज हम इनसे स्पिरिचुअलिटी द पाथ टू अल्टीमेट रियलिटी इस टॉपिक पर सुनेंगे। स्वागत है सर आपका। प्लेटफॉर्म अब आप।
Thank you so
Welcome,
much.
sir.
Thank you, Dr. Jot, for again inviting me on this very, I would say, dignified and a very elite podium. And it's my privilege to be invited again. Thanks so much.
So, spirituality is the path to ultimate reality.
Yes.
So, what is ultimate reality and how we are defining the path? बताइए सर।
Yes, yes. Actually, the whole idea for choosing this particular topic was right from the time that we had taken admission to the medical school and tried to understand about neurology and the brain and there was this very big existential gnawing kind of a need to understand that what is this whole universe all about, what is creation, what is what is life, and what is the purpose of life. And these are very broad philosophical questions actually, but they were really extremely they had kind of engulfed my mind for quite a few years. And I don't know how it works for most of my professional colleagues, and I was kind of used to be looked upon as an odd man out, because most of the people used to say that I mean, why are you bothering about these things? Just let it be. We have one life, live it, enjoy it, and do your work. And so but there has to be some what you might call it as a fundamental basis of life, whether there is a creator, whether there is God who created this, or what, and what was his purpose. And these questions were all the time very harrowing and very distressing for me, which really I couldn't find answer in most of the domains that we were familiar with. Like in a simple thing, like in our professional career, we see phenomenon like cancer. Now, like, if one were to look at it, that what is it that what is it in the cancerous cell that makes it rebel against the host and eventually consumes the host. And I, as a neurosurgeon, I've been operating on gliomas and glioblastoma, and it's very disheartening to see that I'm helpless. We do take a biopsy, and we are totally at the mercy of those mutinous cells, and they end up giving a life expectancy of not more than 6 months or a year in most of the advanced gliomas. So there, this entire conundrum of what is life, what is a cell, what is the intelligence which drives our human body, it's very incredible. If you look at our human body, the more I try to unravel it, we have a very narrow bandwidth of how much a pH can be should be maintained. It should be between 7.34 to 7.42. Minor variation in that, and also it can be disastrous. Sodium has to be within a very narrow bandwidth, and there is some intelligence in the body which is maintaining all these systems, all these organs in a harmony of sorts, symphony. And that intelligence is supreme. I mean, even if a simple thing like you take off a wound healing, the wound edges, the cells at the edges of the wound multiply till a such time that they come to a point of bridging that defect. And then by contact inhibition, the cell reproduction stops, and the scar forms. And there's some kind of a intelligence which defeats any kind of a program or any logical analysis of this. So I've all along, I mean, this whole thing was something that was bothering me to a great extent. So that is when I started foraying into the domain of understanding what is consciousness, and what is that led me to trying to understand what is matter, so that made me uh, get into the domain of quantum physics. And where you're trying to study the subatomic, what happens at the subatomic level, because the Western scientists and the Western approach is a reductionist approach, which it'll break things into smaller parts to try to. So in 2019, I had the great opportunity and privilege to visit this Large Hadron Collider, which is an underground 26-kilometer tunnel where they had discovered the Higgs boson. And it is an incredible feat of human engineering. It's one of the largest man-made machines, uh, but still, what was earlier thought that it was going to be the electron and the protons are being smashed into getting even smaller subatomic particles. And quite surprisingly, there it is not that there are only 3 or 4 such particles which we believe are going to be the final constituents. It is described as a zoo of subatomic particles. That means protons se bhi come smaller. There are hundreds and hundreds of subatomic particles. So coming back to the main question that you had asked me, I am really quite convinced that even if we were to come to what constitutes the matter, and what is the proton, what is matter made up of, I don't still see that it will lead us to the it will lead me or give me answers to the question of is there some creator, is there some so-called benevolent being that has, the sheer size of the universe of being about 14,000 light years in diameter. It's staggering to see that there are infinite galaxies, infinite stars, and to imagine that there is someone who's sitting down there and has created this is really hard. I mean, I can't, my intelligence cannot accept that. So cutting down all this, I just give this background to you. So I realized that if I want to find an answer as to what is this whole quagmire, this puzzle of life, is there a creator, is there someone, I don't think that either physics or neurosciences, because the brain, we operating on it, we are trying to see understand different aspects of the brain. But still, I don't suppose that these two faculties would give me answers to this question. So, what is the ultimate truth? That means, can human intelligence ever decipher this whole puzzle of creation? Is it within the scope of human intelligence? And that is what the Western world is trying to do. They're using intelligence, new cutting edge technology, cutting edge tools. But I don't suppose that we will get answers to that. So what is the ultimate reality then? अंतिम सत्य का शोध जो है, जिसको हम बोल सकते हैं कि अंतिम सत्य क्या है, मतलब ये, तो this answer, I don't suppose I'll get it by these modalities. So I said that okay, I'll have to rest this, I will have to just put this aside. And then what path can I choose? Because I need answers, and like Dr. Ranjan, you will also agree with me that when we are students of science, we always believe that every effect has a cause and every cause has an effect, and that's how our allopathic science is based on, that it is a science. And we've been studying science right from the time we were in school, and it always tries to question why, who, what, and these answers are never going to be within the domain of human intelligence. Human intelligence is something which is phenomenal. It is just absolutely incredible that man has evolved to the point of reaching up to the moon, and all by virtue of his intelligence. But I feel that like in many of the Zen texts that I have read, that it is said that you can navigate with intelligence only if you're it's water that you're navigating. You can navigate with the boat only till you're in water. Once it hits the bank, that boat which is there, you have to abandon it, and you have to find an alternative modes to travel the further distance. So somewhere I think man will have to realize that his intelligence is incapable of finding answers to these questions. So then what records do I have? What do I look for? How can I find answers? And that is when I realized two things. One is that in the given paradigm, that the box that we talk about, a box of scientific thought and scientific logics, rationality, reasoning, the answer is not going to come. Which means I've got to think out of the box. I've got to go beyond the box, because the box is not going to give me the answers. So one is I have to go out of the box, and secondly, do I resort to any other uh, mm, uh, vehicle to traverse this terrain where logic is totally defeated? It is defeated. Logic, quantum physics, which is the most most accurate science of that can explain everything and is experimentally proven, still makes the human intelligence surrender. Absolutely, like things like quantum entanglement, or things like, they are just you there's no explanation, absolutely no explanation. Which means that I have to come back to the drawing board and start from the beginning and see whether I'm on some other path. Which got me to a very interesting bit of literature uh, called by the very, I don't know, you might have heard his name, Sant Dnyaneshwar. He's one of the most revered saints in Maharashtra.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. And you know what? Uh, there is a particular text written by him. It's about 65 stanzas, and it is, I happen to go through it through one of as recommended by one of my relatives. And Dr. Ranjan, you won't believe it, what he is trying to, the message that he's trying to give in that particular very short, it is 65 stanzas. It's called Pasashti, Sangdev Pasashti. There is no mention of God. There is no mention of any religion. There is no mention of any, what you might, we understand as, we've been programmed, we've been brought up as in a particular belief that we are Hindus or Muslims, or so we have our belief systems. But quite contrary to that, there is absolutely no mention made of any indoctrination of any sort, any ritual, nothing at all. And you know what he talks about? He talks about this whole universe as being a projection on the screen of my consciousness. And it is absolutely like, he talks of that whatever that he calls that, in that the a rough translation of that would be called as the essence. He calls that as the essence.
Mhm.
वो जो तत्व है, वो जो तत्व है, that is simultaneously splitting into the observer, the observed, and observation. And there are actually stanzas which actually mention this.
Hmm.
And which is what quantum physics also says, that quantum physics says that for an event to have occurred, it will not have occurred if there is no intelligent observer. So quantum physics is also talking of the importance of the observer. And then as I delved further into it, I realized that this ultimate truth that we are which I'm obsessed with about, is going to be in the realm of not something that intelligence can provide me. It is going to be something more of an intuitive kind of a experience. And it will be an experiential thing. It will not be arising out of experiment. It will arise out of experience. And I have now come to the conviction, and I'm totally convinced about this, that if I were to delink any kind of religion from this text that I was mentioning about, and if it were to be, unfortunately, because he was arising, he was, looked upon as a saint from the संत परंपरा जो बोलते हैं हमारे, तो वो संत होने की वजह से उसको शायद it got the connotation of being something pertaining to religion, or, but I know for a fact that these are people who have actually, in that state of realization that they've reached, have understood and have got the answers, because at that point there's no questions left, there's no answers, there's no one to question. It is experiencing the state of oneness. And what I academically can, we might say, as one of the Brahma, one of the Upanishadic truths of Aham Brahmasmi, which is that the whole universe is within me, because the universe is projected on my screen, on the screen of my consciousness. So the universe is within me actually, because it's projected on my screen of my consciousness. So I thought that this is something that I'd like to share with our group of doctors and people who are here. And although, sorry, my answer was a very, very long one, but but I think it's relevant to getting the whole idea of, how this evolved, this whole process. So I'm now convinced about this one thing.
Okay. Let me reiterate whatever you are saying, that there is observation, there is observer, and there is object. And
Yes.
we are sharing our observation,
Yeah.
and that is we call as a world or matter.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But the fundamental is the consciousness, the observer, and it is
Yes.
one.
Yes.
What there is concept of oneness.
Yes.
और वननेस की बात, अद्वैत की बात तो हर जगह आती है।
Absolutely.
वो
Absolutely.
योग में भी है, वो वेदांत में भी है, वो
Absolutely.
सांख्य में भी है।
Absolutely.
तो वननेस तक पहुंचने के लिए, टू रीच द स्टेट ऑफ वननेस, व्हाट डू यू रिकमेंड? मीन्स साधना और कॉन्टेम्पलेशन और
Yeah.
इंटेलेक्चुअल, you also mentioned that intellect and intelligence
Yes. Yes.
and intuition,
Yes.
we cannot comprehend these concepts by intellect.
Intelligence. No, no, it is not. Definitely not. And you know what? Um, like for like I had mentioned earlier, that we have to think out of the box, right? Now, if I'm thinking out of the box, just recently, just today, I am doing a course in pranic healing, because I found that to be something which is absolutely an out of the box thing. In fact, the other course mates who were attending the course with me were all pretty amazed, and they were shocked that a person who's a doctor and a neurosurgeon is doing a thing in pranic healing. But इसकी मैं आपको एक
मैंने
there's
भी
a
लेवल 1 तक सीखा हुआ है सर।
हाँ ना, हाँ। नहीं, इसमें आपके आपको उसके भी साइंटिफिक बेसिस में आपको बोलता हूँ। क्या है कि हमारे साइंस को ना एक तरह का अहंकार हो गया है।
यस।
अहंकारी हो गई है साइंस, हमारा एलोपैथी, जो हम बोलते हैं कि इन मराठी देयर इज अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल सेइंग कि बाप दिखा नहीं तो श्राद्ध कर उसका। You show me proof, otherwise then bury the thing. That's the kind of an ego that science has got. Show me proof, otherwise get lost. Now, what happens is, till we are in that egoistic state of science and intelligence and rationality, we are unfortunately shutting the doors to so many other avenues which would have a lot of promise. And the logic for that is, if I don't know, I'd mentioned it in our earlier talk, but the journey of the western world is from स्थूल टू सूक्ष्म। मतलब वो ग्रॉस है ना, जो आप रिडक्शनिज्म बोलते हो कि इसको काट के मॉलिक्यूल को काटा तो एटम निकला, एटम को काटा तो प्रोटॉन निकला, प्रोटॉन को काटा तो ये निकला, वो काटते जा रहे, रिडक्शनिज्म से जा रहे। तो जो स्थूल चीज है उसको और सूक्ष्म की तरह जा रहे। One point will come, I'm very certain, I may not be alive at that point in time, but I do know one thing, that वो somewhere this matter is going to throw up going to open a Pandora's box, where people will suddenly realize that yaar ye to this is some kind of a weird energy. At some point it is like Einstein said E is equal to mc squared, so mass and energy are interconvertible. But eventually, if I try to find the functional unit of matter, I am sure that at some point when science goes to that level, they'll realize that this is energy. And energy is something which, the tangible energy is electricity, the things which we see. But there are so many other forms of energy. Like now, for example, before electromotive force, EMF was invented by Maxwell. Who knew that electrons can flowing electrons through a wire can light up bulbs? We didn't know. And still we can't see the electrons, we can't but we see the effect of electricity. So there must be some other modalities of energy transmission which we cannot scientifically prove that this is the thing and ये किया और ये ऐसे हुआ. तो हमारा जो जर्नी है which is what I feel, and जो I think Swami Vivekananda had mentioned is that in this millennium, India will be the Jagat Guru and it will show the path ahead to the world. तो मुझे ये लगता है कि ये जो जर्नी जो है वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड का, जो स्थूल से सूक्ष्म की तरफ जा रहा है ना, वो हमारे हमारे जो आइडियोलॉजी, आई वोंट इवन कॉल इट रिलीजन, हमारी जो फिलोसॉफी है, हमारा जो बिकॉज unfortunately in the if one puts a label of either religion or it calls it Hinduism or something, then it will be relegated. There are people who might want to study it further, but we'll just push it aside by saying that no, this is just a religious ideology. But the philosophical systems, Indian philosophical systems और हमारे Indian knowledge systems जो है, उनका जो जर्नी है वो सूक्ष्म से स्थूल की तरफ जा रहा है. So it is the reverse. एंड व्हेन आई कैन, सो ये जो प्राणिक हीलिंग हो या फिर ये ओरिएंटल के जो ओरिएंट में से ओरिजिनेट होने वाले जो नॉलेज सिस्टम्स या फिर बिलीफ सिस्टम्स है, वो अभी,
भारतीय
हाँ,
नॉलेज सिस्टम BKS.
हाँ बिल्कुल, तो वो सूक्ष्म से स्थूल की तरह जा रहे हैं. तो अभी प्राणिक हीलिंग अगर मैं करने लगूं तो मैं सूक्ष्म का इस्तेमाल कर रहा हूं, पर उसका इफेक्ट मैं स्थूल में देख रहा हूं.
हाँ, यस.
So, which is the other way? Western world is going the other way around. So what I feel is that it is up to us to. I think it is. I take it upon myself as my personal responsibility to so-called remove the drapes of any color, saffron or whatever, which unfortunately have wrapped up this philosophical system and knowledge system, which actually is the ultimate truth. So you even calling it spirituality would be in a way denigrating it, because you're saying that this has something to do with God or it has something to do with the belief system, but it is not actually, and trust me, when I every time I keep that book, the title of that book, you'll be surprised, is called Unito Mystica, and below that is written Jnaneshwara, a post quantum scientist. That is the name of the book.
Oh.
And it is absolutely fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Now the next endeavor that comes to my mind, and in fact I've just submitted an article to the speaking tree about consciousness and awareness. So the whole logic of this system works on the premise that there is, in fact, I don't know whether you read about the Nobel Prize for Physics in 2022. At 2022, yeah. Was it the latest Nobel Prize? The one, I think in 23 perhaps. The 22 Nobel Prize declared in 23, that's right. Then 22 Nobel Prize was given to three scientists who actually, could I go a little deeper into quantum physics?
Yes, sir. Please, welcome.
Okay. You see, what happened was this: people were trying to understand this phenomenon of entanglement, quantum entanglement, wherein the two particles, no matter how far away they were from each other, are connected. They are called as entangled. And if I change the polarity of one particle, or if I try to measure the polarity of one particle, which, like, the particle could be either in having an A, B, or A or B polarity, let's say, okay, and the other particle is going to have the so if इसका अगर polarity A है तो दूसरे particle का B ही होना है, और इसका अगर B हुआ तो उसको A ही होना है. That is the condition of these particles being entangled. But as per quantum physics, the particle which I'm talking about, until I actually check the polarity, it remains in both A and B. That is called as a quantum superposition. They are in superposition. तो ये पार्टिकल जब तक मैं उसको देखूंगा नहीं, उसको मेजर नहीं करूंगा, तब तक वो ए और बी दोनों पोलैरिटीज एक साथ है उसके. ओके. अभी आप समझ लीजिए कि मैंने ये ए पार्टिकल मेरे पास है, बी पार्टिकल आपके पास है, सॉरी एक्स पार्टिकल मेरे पास है और वाई पार्टिकल आपके पास है, और उनके पोलैरिटीज ए या बी हो सकते हैं. और जब तक मैं उनको ना मेजर करूं, टिल आई डोंट मेजर इट, द पार्टिकल्स आर गोइंग टू हैव बोथ ए एंड बी पोलैरिटी, व्हिच इज अगेन irrational for our scientific person. You will say अरे यार एक बोल यार, ए तो बोल है बी तो, वो बोले नहीं, मेजरमेंट करने तक वो दोनों दोनों भी हो सकते हैं. तो अगर मैंने ये खोला, मेरा एक्स पार्टिकल का मेजर किया, तब तक ये भी ए और बी है और आपके पास का भी ए और बी दोनों पोलैरिटी में है. सही है. मैंने ये जब खोला और मैंने मेजर किया कि ये बी है, तो तुरंत आपका पार्टिकल ए होना ही चाहिए. It will adopt the I'm in a call. Speak to Sonal.
वो श्रोडिंजर का कैट एक्सपेरिमेंट, द कैट इज
Yes, yes.
लाइव
1 minute.
और डेड
I'm
इनसाइड.
on a call. Please call Sonal. So yeah, that's right. So that Schrodinger cat, which is simultaneously dead and alive till I open the box, same thing. But which means that uh, Einstein had propagated this as a thought experiment, and later on he said that perhaps ये हो सकता है कि there's no way to explain entanglement, क्योंकि वो how can this particle, जब मैं ये B हो गया तो वो पार्टिकल को ये B निकला, ये कैसे पता, क्योंकि वो तुरंत A हो जाता है. तो ये सिग्नल कैसे पहुंचा, एंड दैट पार्टिकल कैन बी लाइट इयर्स अवे. तो आइंस्टाइन हैज सेड दैट परहैप्स देयर आर व्हाट ही कॉल्ड एज अननोन वेरिएबल्स, जो हमको मालूम नहीं है, वो दे आर वर्किंग, एंड व्हिच इज व्हाई दिस एंटेंगलमेंट कैन नॉट बी एक्सप्लेन्ड एंड अंडरस्टूड बाय अस. तो दिस
रूपर्ट सेल्ड्रिक कॉल इट मॉर्फिक फील्ड.
Yeah, there is a morphic field also, yes, which is another subject altogether. But this entanglement thing, what happened was, mm, for a long period in time, they were saying that Einstein said the unknown variables, so we don't know, मालूम नहीं. वो जब उनकी डिस्कवरी हो जाएगी तो पता चलेगा कि entanglement. So these scientists actually, they were then there was one very interesting person who had come out with his own set of experiments to disprove that there is any such thing as unknown variables. But that was only in the academic domain. But these three scientists, they actually came out with experiments which disproved the very existence of unknown variables, and they said that entanglement happens for reasons entirely which are spooky and unknown. So it is not because of unknown variables. And they got the Nobel Prize for that, which actually went on to say that perhaps the whole universe is virtual, which is the rational conclusion of their, and that is, you can Google it and check. That is what the conclusion of their Nobel Prize that they got for that. Which means that ये जो हम बोल रहे हो ना हमारे फिलोसॉफिकल सिस्टम्स में, अनफॉर्चुनेटली ये बोल रहे हैं कि ये माया है. माया है मतलब ये
माया
इल्यूजन है.
माया जाल
मतलब
है.
माया, हाँ, माया जाल है, माया है. तो ये माया मतलब, that is what these people are also coming to realize now, that the universe might just be a virtual reality and an illusion. And
Weird
so I
illusion.
think, huh,
Illusion which we all are sharing.
we all are sharing, absolutely. And so that is why this whole thing becomes very interesting. And trust me, I've tried to I've seen hundreds and hundreds of videos of trying to understand what entanglement is, what are unknown variables, what are those experiments which were disproving unknown variables. I actually went down and for your interest, if you see, the Higgs boson is something which is, it's fascinating. It blows your mind. It's just mind boggling. So after having forayed into all these things, I'm now convinced. Now, the coming to the question of how does one get to that experiential state? uh, I have really no answer to that, because um, uh, if there were to be a prescribed methodology for that, then I guess it would have, all of us would not be asking questions, and we would perhaps follow that and get to that point. But I think that it's some kind of a you get an insight, you get a realization. That's why they in our our philosophical systems, they say that it is a self realization, because when you understand the self कि मैं कौन हूँ, because our spirituality is defined as कोहम, मैं कौन हूँ, और सोहम, you are that. तो मैं कौन हूँ इसका जवाब जब मिल जाएगा, और वो मैं कौन हूँ इसकी खोज करने के तरीके हैं, उसमें वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग इज टू probably meet a come across a guru who can guide you on that path, or you can have there are many ways to reach there. I'm still a traveler on that path. It's But one thing for certain, that I know I have to abandon my intelligence. I have to abandon my science, the conventional science that I am following.
Uh, it's
And
it's very
uh,
surprising, sir, when a neurosurgeon is saying that we have to abandon the approach of science to understand
yes, yes. No,
ourselves.
because reality will never, and understanding my own self, because that understanding of the, like I said, and even quantum physics is now appreciating that the upgrade of quantum physics from classical science is defined as moving from the experiment to an experience, because they also talk of a conscious observer being very important to the whole scheme of things. So, I since you felt me worthy of being invited to be a speaker on your show, I can only tell you one thing. Okay, I don't have any answers, or I don't claim to be knowledgeable, and give a to do list. ये तो नहीं है मेरे पास. पर हाँ, इतनी बात तो जरूर है कि जो मैं आपको बोल रहा हूँ और जो मैं आपके साथ शेयर कर रहा हूँ ना, वो कम से कम 25-30 सालों की खोज का नतीजा है. और ये खोज ऐसी है कि इट इज नॉट कि मैं मतलब कैजुअली कुछ ऐसा जो हॉबी की तरह पढ़ रहे हैं. ये मतलब एक डीप डाउन डिजायर है, बहुत ही डीप डाउन डिजायर है. तो इट पुशेस यू इनटू डिफरेंट डोमेन्स, लाइक सो I can, if I can do justice to the opportunity and the honor that you've given me, I can suffice it to tell you that those who are interested in this and who would like to get answers, uh, intelligence and science as it stands is, you'll have to put that tool aside, keep it aside, keep that ego aside. And that because intelligence has a lot of ego with it, बहुत ज्यादा ईगो होता है. और वो मतलब मुझे मालूम है, और आई नो, ये जो मतलब वन वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग कोटेशन विच आई रेड, कि आपको अभी वाल्मीकि जो सेज वाल्मीकि जो थे, जिन्होंने आई थिंक रामायण का लिखा, या तो अभी राम मंदिर का है, तो इस हिसाब से मुझे वो याद आया. तो मराठी में उसको वाल्या से वाल्मीकि होना वो बोलते. तो वो वाल्या जो था, ही वॉज एक्चुअली अ ठग. वो
Robert.
लूटता था लोगों का, हाँ, थीफ था. और जब एक दिन उसकी बीवी ने उनको बोला कि आपके जो ये है वो हम शेयर नहीं करेंगे, तो इट टर्न मैन, वो एकदम मतलब बहुत ही नीच काम करने वाला आदमी जो वाल्या था, उससे वो वाल्मीकि बन गया. तो वाल्या से वाल्मीकि बनना एक बार एक तरह से शायद आसान हो सकता है, लेकिन जो जिस आदमी को मैं सत्य जो कर रहा हूँ, मैं रिचुअल जो कर रहा हूँ, मैं सही कर रहा हूँ, मुझे मालूम है और यही रास्ता है, वो जो एक ईगो हो जाता है वो आदमी को, उसको स्पिरिचुअली एडवांस होना बहुत मुश्किल है. बिकॉज दैट सेंस ऑफ राइटियसनेस, कि हाँ, मुझे मालूम है, आई एम ऑन द राइट पाथ, मैं फास्ट कर रहा हूँ, मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, आई एम ऑन द, तो वो रिलीजन तक ही मर्यादित रहेगा, पर वो ईगो हो जाता है उसका कि मुझे मालूम है क्या है, और फिर वो उसकी ही विल नॉट प्रोग्रेस. So to abandon intelligence and to have faith and to believe that the next level of our human evolution of the brain, which I operate upon, the can you imagine how beautiful this organ is? That this brain which I am operating upon, the greatest achievement of this organ, I tell you, is for that brain to be able to understand that it has its own limits. It's such a beautiful thought. जब मैं बोल रहा हूं, मेरा ब्रेन मुझे ये बता रहा है कि बॉस, ये मेरे जो कैपेबिलिटी है, ये आपको कुछ काम नहीं आने वाली है, वो फेंक दो उसको. तो वो क्या ऑर्गन होएगा जो अपनी बुराई कर रहा है और बोल रहा है कि ये इसको कीप इट असाइड. So that I think is something which will be food for thought for all our participants.
I have two, three questions, sir.
Yeah.
The first question is telepathy. Have you experienced or observed telepathy in your life ever? And
Uh,
uh,
yeah.
what your comment on telepathy, especially
Telepathy.
mechanism or the what how telepathy happens?
Yeah. Yes. Uh, I'll try to give you an answer which has a slightly scientific basis to it. As you might be aware, that the human brain has got frontal lobes, which are which are actually making us separate from the primates. The
Yes.
primates don't have the frontal lobes. So the frontal lobe, as we are using the fMRI and we are investigating deeper and deeper into the brain, if I were to tell you one thing, that इन द सब सहारन अफ्रीका, जहाँ पर कोई इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं, कुछ नहीं, कोई कुछ नहीं है, और मैं अगर वहाँ पे पहुँचूँ और मैं आपको मोबाइल पे फ़ोन करके मैं आपको अमेरिका न्यूयॉर्क का यूजिंग द इंटरनेट आई शो अप लाइव व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन न्यूयॉर्क जस्ट नाउ, तो इट विल बी इनकंसीवेबल फॉर दोज पीपल, बिकॉज वो दे नॉट बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि ये क्या हो रहा है.
Yes.
तो हमारे जो फ्रंटल लोब्स है या फिर नॉन डोमिनेंट टेम्पोरल लोब्स है, इसके अंदर बहुत से अनडिस्कवर्ड कैपेबिलिटीज, फंक्शनैलिटीज रहेंगे, जो which mediate at a wavelength. Like, you are all aware of this fact that our visual bandwidth is within, or for that matter, our from the ultraviolet to infrared, and then the seven
1000,
colors, and
4000,
then for auditory, it is
37,
2000 to 20,000 hertz.
yeah, or it will
Now, which means that the existing sensory modalities that we are using for our day-to-day life are have got a spectrum which is defined in which they operate. There will definitely be other modalities, higher frequencies, higher, I would say, like, we had never imagined that sound can be used as a diagnostic tool for ultrasound. It's ultrasound, you can't hear it, but it is being utilized for a different purpose altogether. So there will definitely be other modes of communication, like what you're talking about, telepathy. In fact, the CIA is, from reliable sources, is working on a domain called as remote sensing. Have you heard of it?
yes, sir. And in fact, there is one
So
documentary film with the name
yes,
Third Eye.
yes, yes, yes. So they now, when they're actually having subjects who are sitting in the CIA office or in Washington DC, and they are remotely trying to sense what's happening at the at a distant location, like at the Arctic or somewhere, to see whether. So probably those faculties exist in our brain, just that we've not been able to tap them at will. So, coming to your question of telepathy, I'm sure that there is some mode of communication. There is definitely. I have, in my profession, experienced some kind of an intuitive thing,
Yes.
which I have experienced quite a few times, although not at will. I cannot tell you, predict in this particular case, this is what I have, this intuition. But there have been, some kind of messages which are very hard to explain, which just says that, नहीं यार, मुझे ये ठीक नहीं लग रहा है, ये बंदा इसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम है. So yeah, this is also a faculty of the brain which perhaps can be tapped in the coming years.
रूपर्ट सेल्ड्रैक के एक्सपेरिमेंट में ही टेलीपैथी का एक्सपेरिमेंट ही हैज कंडक्टेड वेरियस एक्सपेरिमेंट्स, और जिसको ऑब्जर्व करने के बाद इट इज वेरी क्लियर दैट लाइक व्हेन a pet owners starts from his workplace to coming to
Yes,
home, the
yes, yes, yes,
pet
absolutely.
feels he knows
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
at the right time uh, they are standing on the door to
Yeah,
welcome to meet the master. So
absolutely.
how pet is connected with the that master, that
Master, yeah,
connection is still
can't
unknown.
be explained. Can't be explained. In
So,
fact, on the same lines, I don't know, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I have read reports where when this tsunami hit the Andaman, Lakshadweep, and that part, there were no animal carcasses. Are
yeah,
you aware of that?
yes.
I mean, so obviously they are having some kind of a sensory modality in their brain, which is kind of giving them cues to suggest something, some oncoming, natural thing, which and they protected themselves. So the human brain, that is why I feel that the neuroscience, quantum physics, and spirituality and all, they're interrelated, because perhaps there might be, who knows, there might be some center in the medial prefrontal cortex, which if you stimulate, you just might become a realized soul. I don't know. I wish something like that I could find out. I might get a Nobel Prize in that case.
Uh, we will wish that to you, sir. Statement of Nikola Tesla that if you want to understand the universe, start
Yes,
thinking in terms of frequency, vibrational
yes,
frequency, and
absolutely.
consciousness. I think that if we start taking this statement of Nikola Tesla more seriously, then
Absolutely.
perhaps we will know some deeper mysteries of life.
Yes, because actually Nicholas Tesla was himself testimony to that, because that man, the kind of staggering, inventions that he made, and they were all, pretty much out of the box. So it's a great ability, I think, that the brain has to be able to, हमारे जो दायरे हैं, जो बनाए गए हैं सोचने के, वो सोचने के दायरों को भी तोड़ने का, destroy those confines of conformism or established protocols of thought, and our brain has a capability to break down that and go above, so which is something which is really fascinating.
Last question, sir. Uh,
Yeah.
what is the location of mind?
Oh God, that's a very very hard question. uh, ये मैं आपको सिर्फ आपने वो आदि शंकराचार्य जी का आत्मशतकम सुना है आपने?
Yes, very much, very well.
हाँ। तो तो मुझे जब भी कभी माइंड के बारे में कोई पूछता है ना, तो मैं यही समझता हूँ कि आई एम neither my intelligence, I'm neither my ego, I'm neither my mind, I'm neither my soul. And I think it's such a beautiful idea that,
Very,
so then all, because all these are intangibles. Like if you ask me where is the ego, I have no answer to that. It is a construct of, obviously the substrate for that is the brain neurology, because it probably might be a aggregation of your emotions, aggregation of your sensory inputs, aggregation of everything of the sort. But like it, whenever I listen to that, I just feel so overwhelmed, because uh, that was, he was far ahead of his times perhaps, and but unfortunately again has been kind of relegated to something that is a religious thing, which is, the I think, in my opinion, is a very big tragedy. बिकॉज ये फिलोसॉफिकल, हमारी जो फिलोसॉफीज है और जो स्पिरिचुअलिटी के, अभी अगर जैसे अभी आप द मोमेंट आप अद्वैत वेदांत ये सब्जेक्ट, ये दो शब्द आप निकालोगे ना, तो तुरंत उसको वो, मतलब 80% ऑफ द पीपल विल जस्ट रेलिगेटेड टू सेइंग कि ये दिस इज हिंदुइज्म.
yes,
वो
very true,
इस
sir.
बात का दुख है मुझे. तो वो शायद, and that is why I feel particularly more relevant, that as a and actually that is why I'm also coming out with this kind of a program which is called Mastering the Master, because the brain ke jo untold untapped potential hai, and to, if like when we buy a mobile, we have a user's manual. There's no user's manual for the human brain. So I'm trying to work out a user's manual which will tell you that these are the potentials that you have. this is what you can do with the brain. It's a At the moment I'm working on a corporate training program for calling it Mastering the Master. But of course, it will have references to this beautiful non-duality Advait philosophy. And if you ask me, the if India has, which I see it in the near foreseeable future, that India will be a Jagat Guru for the whole world. But one of the flag bearers of this victory lap of India will be the Advait Vedanta philosophy, which is not a religion. It is a very, very profound philosophy, and wouldn't even call it spirituality. But then, since it is a topic which we are talking of today, okay, I make that concession and say it is spirituality because it is trying to understand what the spirit of existence is all about. So
Uh,
let's hope.
bringing philosophy out of religion is a big task.
It's a big task. Yes, yes. And I think, but I would strongly recommend, and I would strongly urge uh, anyone who's listening to our programs, that to give you an example, काफी बार मुझे मेरे जब मैं स्पाइन ऑपरेट करता हूँ, ट्यूमर किसी का, तो कोई बोलता है कि सर मैं होम्योपैथी लूँ क्या ना लूँ. So I tell him, look, brother, I have not studied homeopathy. Okay. So for me to tell you either to take it or not to take it, both ways I'm wrong. Because if I don't know about it, I cannot be in a position of judgment na, कि, to tell him that मत भी लो और लो भी, दोनों तरह से. तो आमतौर पे हम हमारा घमंड जो होता है एलोपैथी का, है ये मत लो, उसका कोई रेलेवेंस नहीं, ये कहना भी उतना ही गलत है जितना कि मैं बोलूं कि आप ले लो. तो मैं उनको ऑनेस्टली बोलता हूँ कि भैया, आई हैव नॉट स्टडीड इट, सो आई एम नॉट इन अ पोजिशन टू टेल यू whether it will work or not. But if it suits you and if you believe in it, please go ahead. So the same way, until and unless, I would urge all our listeners that at least you, before you relegate something to say that this is religion, take some efforts to try to see what it is trying to say. And if you make, if it does appeal to your sensibility in a whatever way it does, then it will at least open the doors of your mind to think in a different on these paths, and I hope that the whole purpose of our talk today would be achieved if at least I can convince maybe 5 or 10 people to start exploring and try to understand a little more about what this philosophy is, and not just look at it as a religion.
Yeah, wonderful, sir. One more question, sir. Do you pray before surgery? What is the role of prayer? How much you believe in prayer?
A very interesting question. Uh, I'll tell you the answer in a slightly slightly more detail. You know, one of the greatest drawbacks for a surgeon is to watch himself walk the very thin line of neither being diffident nor being overconfident. आप अगर डिफिडेंट हो गए, जैसे वो जोक था कि एक मरीज का अपेंडिक्स का सर्जरी हो रहा है, वो ओटी में ले आया उसको, और वो नर्स उसको बोल रही है कि डोंट वरी, इट्स जस्ट एन अपेंडिसेक्टमी. तो पेशेंट बोलता है, आई एम नॉट वरीड. देन शी सेज, योर बीपी इज 180, डोंट, रिलैक्स, चिल, इट्स जस्ट अ माइनर वाना प्रोसीजर. He said, but I am not worried. And she says, but why is your heart rate so much? Relax. So then finally he got irritated. He said, I'm fine. Saying, I'm not telling you, I'm telling the surgeon. तो वो डिफिडेंस एक चीज है सर्जन में, कि वो करने के पहले उसको डर अगर ज्यादा है तो वो काम नहीं कर पाएगा, और अगर ओवर कॉन्फिडेंट हो जाए तो ही इज मोर प्रोन टू मेकिंग मिस्टेक्स. So how do you walk that very razor edge of neither going towards diffidence and neither going towards overconfidence? That is where, if you want to walk that razor edge and make sure that you don't tilt either way, then you need to hold onto that rope of, you might call, God. And I believe that whenever before I start doing a surgery, I request that whoever that power is to vest its benevolence in my hands, because I know that very often why I'm doing a particular step, taking a particular step, and what makes me take that step is something which is very hard to explain, because it's a very fast affair, every time to for it to go through the circuit of what I'm seeing, then being processed by my brain, and then my hands doing it. Every time that all the steps, if they go through that circuit, the surgery will be prolonged a long way. And you'll be quite surprised that after quite a few surgeries that are recorded, because we have a very high end microscope when we record the surgery, and when I look at that, I really wonder, okay, is this me who's operating at that time? What made me take this decision? I don't know. And that stage of being so much at where your ego gets effaced, your identity gets effaced, and that can happen only if you have faith in that some entity, which I think is, you might call it by God, or you might call it anything, but that is very necessary for a surgeon to prevent him either swaying towards diffidence or being overconfident also.
Wonderful. I feel more surgeon need to be in this stand that neither overconfident nor the other side.
Diffidence.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, Saranjanji, and best wishes to you. And I do look forward to interacting with the elite group that you've made, and all the best for this coming new year to all our listeners also. Yeah.